Jerry from Kendall in Kansas asks, what is Kevin Love's impact in Cleveland? Well, Cleveland has given up a lot, especially when you consider that Kevin Love was and is still going to be an unrestricted free agent next year. We'll get to that in a second, but let's have a look at exactly what they've given up. They've given up Wiggins, who was the #1 pick from this year's draft, and Bennett, who was a #1 pick in last year's draft, and also next year's first rounder that they're getting from Miami. That's a lot. That's a hell of a lot to be giving up for an unrestricted free agent, because everyone will be quick to assume that Kevin Love will be sticking around to play with LeBron. But let's have a look at Dwight Howard and how quickly he spurned Kobe and the Lakers in a very similar situation, and he went to Houston. He utilized his ability as a free agent to go wherever he wanted to. Kevin Love, different player, but similar situation. Who would have thought that Howard would have done what he did, but he did it. Also, it's somewhat unprecedented to see two, like back-to-back, not just two, but back-to-back #1 picks overall being traded so quickly in their careers. Wiggins hasn't even played yet. So it should be very interesting. They've given up a lot. What they do get in return is obviously Kevin Love, who's a good passer, very good shooter for his position, and he cleans the glass very well. Maybe he's a better fit than Bosh for LeBron. He doesn't require the ball as much as Bosh did, and that's really a big reason why Bosh struggled in Miami. Questionable leadership. He's never made the playoffs. He's never had a winning season. A lot of that has to do with being in such a brutal conference as the West. I mean, and now he's going to be in the East, so maybe we're going to see a lot more of a winning attitude. He did fit in very well in Team USA, and it wasn't a problem there, but they'll never really challenge. I mean, there were some games where it was close, but he wasn't one that stepped up. He just did his job. Maybe we're going to see a similar situation. He won't get nearly as many touches in Cleveland, and with Verajao also on the boards, are we even sure that he's going to be getting a double-double, averaging a double-double? His biggest asset in Cleveland might be his ability to set screens, which sounds ridiculous, but he's a big body. He's not afraid to use that big body. He can throw his weight around. He'll be able to, they'll obviously be running plays with him. Expect pick and pops and pick and roll situations with him and LeBron and him and Irving. But I think primarily the offense is going to be running around Irving and LeBron. So you're not going to see like isolations for him. You're not going to see him posting up. You're not going to see him squaring up. His dominant position on the court will be when he catches it off those pick and pops. But is it worth Wiggins and Bennett? I mean, Bennett was a bit of a dud in his first year, but we've seen that before. There's a precedence for that where players have really struggled to the NBA game and then they've picked it up in their second, third, fourth years. I don't mind them trading Bennett, but it's a lot to give up Bennett and Wiggins. Especially, even if Wiggins is a rookie, you're trading him without knowing if he can handle the pressure of the NBA, and that's a huge call. I mean, look at how small the Eastern Conference is in terms of the size of the teams. There isn't really any dominant four-men. You can easily get away with LeBron playing the four. So you could have had a lineup of Verajao who cleans the board, who cleans the glass very well, good outlet passer. He does a lot of the same things, not as good as Kevin Love, but in some aspects he's better, especially defensively. But and what Kevin Love really excels in, you can get away with having Verajao do those same things. So you could have had a front court of Wiggins, LeBron, and Verajao, and you're not missing out on much. Now, what you have is a lineup of Love, Verajao, and LeBron, which is huge. But I'm not sure if it's better, and that's quite indicative of how big of a risk this is from Cleveland's perspective. Giving up the #1 pick is huge, and maybe, in all honesty, the #1 pick in the NBA is the most valuable out of all #1 picks. I mean, just look at the history of the #1 pick. You've got Wiggins, obviously, Bennett, as I talked about, Anthony Davis. I'm just running off some of the recent ones. Anthony Davis, who's played very well. Kyrie Irving, obviously, straight away you see 3 of the last 4 have been to Cleveland. John Wall, Blake Griffin, Derrick Rose. I mean, these guys have all impacted positively, with the exception of Bennett, on their ball clubs. Um, they could have waited, is what I'm saying. They could have waited a month and a half, and I don't think Wiggins' value would have dropped. I still think you could have made this trade in a month and a half, but at least you would have known. Um, Overall, what the impact means is probably more of a satisfaction for LeBron, which is ridiculous. I mean, they shouldn't be. That's when you get into trouble as a franchise, when you start making deals or trades to try to satisfy one player. If you've got an executive that, an executive should never impact on what a coach does or what a player does, and vice versa. A player should never really be dictating to a front office what they should or shouldn't do. Especially, look, LeBron's only signed, he's only guaranteed for 2 years. What happens if, LeBron leaves in 2 years again? And, it's an interesting and realistic hypothetical, because he has a precedence of leaving. He left Miami, he left Cleveland early. If he leaves again, and they've given up a potential stud, or two potential studs really, but a real potential stud in Wiggins, as well as Bennett, and a first-round pick, it's potentially disastrous. It's somewhat disappointing to see that, but I do think they've become the favourite in the East. I don't think that they become a lock in the East, however, and because of that, I don't think it's a good trade.